Aloha, my name is Keiko Bonk. I'm running for House District 20. I decided to return to electoral politics after being out of elected office for 15 years because I became very disturbed by the actions of the state's elected leadership. For instance, in 2011, the Speaker of the House, Mr. Say, along with the President of the Senate and the Governor, tried to weaken the gift law and the Sunshine Law, the only two laws we have limiting backroom deal-making and pay-to-play politics. Then they created Act 55 behind closed doors and then pushed it through the legislature. Act 55 created the Public Lands Development Corporation, or the PLDC, the most radical change in government since statehood. God knows we could use some radical change in some areas of government, but when radical change comes from behind closed doors, it is almost always bad news for everybody on the other side of the doors. The creators of Act 55 tried to keep it secret because they knew the public would oppose it. Act 55 says the PLDC is responsible for developing public lands and is, quote, exempt from all statutes and ordinances, charter provisions, and rules of any government agency. In other words, the PLDC can do whatever it wants with the public land. To keep people from knowing about Act 55, it was not mentioned in the 2011 legislative package of the House or the Senate, or in the Governor's State of the State speech. When the public found out, hundreds of organizations sent representatives to the hearing where the PLDC was supposed to adopt their internal rules. Except for LRF, the organization representing Hawaii's largest developers, and one other corporate representative, every other individual and group called for the repeal of Act 55. These same so-called leaders keep saying, "Trust us. We have your best interests at heart." Well, I don't know about you, but I don't trust them. The justifications for the PLDC are laughable. They say Hawaii's public lands are in danger because the state doesn't have enough money to care for them. So we need to sell off public lands to private developers so that the state will have enough money to protect whatever public lands the developers don't want. The justification for the PLDC even gets more ludicrous. According to these so-called leaders, the problem started because the citizens of Hawaii have historically had too much power over developers. To ensure the developers have even more power, the leadership appointed Dwayne Kurisu, a developer of office buildings, shopping centers, and industrial parks, to the PLDC. Does anyone really believe that the average citizen has traditionally had more input into land use decisions than large developers? Does anyone really believe that exempting the PLDC from all laws, regulations, and rules, and simply trusting politicians and their friends to do what is best for everyone is a good idea for Hawaii's public lands? With the expanded powers Speaker Say is promising to give the PLDC, it would even be able to use the government's power of eminent domain to take people's private land. I can't speak for everyone, but at this point I'm sick and tired of this "trust me, I got your back, you don't need to know all the details" kind of leadership. What do we have to do? What do we have to show for decades of this kind of leadership? The people of Hawaii are working harder and harder just to afford the basics. Our oceans and our reefs and native forests are dying. Our public infrastructure is falling apart. Our public services are becoming unraveled. We have massive traffic problems, and our state has become internationally known as the extinction capital of the world. This kind of leadership is killing Hawaii. I'm calling for the repeal of Act 55. Many of the legislators that voted for it are saying they made a mistake and didn't know what they were voting for. But my opponent, Calvin Say, is trying to strengthen the PLDC and pass legislation that will indemnify government officials from being responsible for the negative consequences of the PLDC. I ask you, if it is good for Hawaii, why do politicians and government officials need a law that says they aren't responsible for what happens? It's time we hold our elected officials accountable. My name is Keiko Bonk, and I humbly ask for your vote in the general election. It's time for real leadership and real change. Mahalo.